Hey everybody, what's happening? It's Steven
and Spencer.
Today we are continuing our presentation with Stanford University's Tobacco Prevention Toolkit. Our topic today is a little history to set the stage. Today we're going to talk and you're going to learn a little bit about e-cigarettes and vape pens, but it's also important to understand the history of the tobacco industry, since many of the strategies being used by e-cigarette and vape pen manufacturers right now were used and are still being used by cigarette companies. The new focus on increasing nicotine use with these new and popular nicotine delivery systems includes e-cigarettes and vape pens. Tobacco smoking causes around 480,000 deaths every single year, and people still continue to smoke. In part, it's because the tobacco industry has become very good at hiding the risk of cigarette smoking. What we're going to do now is we're going to take a look at the historical context and some of the tobacco industry's tactics.
So cigarettes, which is tobacco leaves rolled in thin paper and smoked, have been around since the 9th century, and they originated in North, Central, and South America. Cigarettes gained international popularity in the 1800s, around the time when global exploration began, and they became widespread around the 20th century.
In this picture, you'll see a graph, and this is what we would call the rise of the tobacco industry. As tobacco became more common across the globe, new technology made cigarette production even easier. In the 1880s, a cigarette making machine was invented, allowing the tobacco industry to begin to grow. As you can see, this is the machine here. This is a picture where we will see as the production increased, so did the consumption of the cigarettes. In the United States, cigarette use often fluctuated with major national events. This picture, which may be a little bit difficult for you to see, actually lists different events from the 1900s. And it goes on to show you the end of World War, the First World Conference of Smoking and Health, and also the first Great American Smokeout. You'll see the fluctuation, but also the increase throughout the national events.
So let's talk about the beginning of big tobacco. Once cigarettes became easier to make, tobacco companies began to develop and expand the cigarette market. Many of these original companies are actually still around today. These companies use advertising strategies to convince people to become their customer.
As you can see in these pictures, doctors recommended it's good for you. What do you notice about these ads? You'll see that there's two male doctors, presumably showing that the cigarettes that they have are good for your health. Many tobacco companies tried to convince their customers that cigarettes were not only harmless, but they were actually good for your health. These ads were not believable at all. In reality, in the 1920s and the 1930s, tobacco companies hired actors to play doctors and dentists just to mislead the public.
In the mid-1930s, a new advertising campaign for Philip Morris referred to research conducted by physicians. In one ad, the company claimed that after prescribing Philip Morris brand cigarettes to patients who had irritated throats, every case of irritation cleared completely or definitely improved. After the launch of this series of advertisements, along with others referring to proof of superiority, Philip Morris became a major cigarette brand. So this could be an example, and there are many others, of how the cigarette industry has misled the public over time.
Kids were not spared when it came to the advertisements. They were catching kids with cartoons. Let's take a look at some examples here on the screen that may not be intended for just adults. What do you think the industry's message was when it comes to these cartoons and these advertisements? They were mostly appealing to kids and teenagers. They were trying to hook customers at an extremely young age. They were trying to have young people connect to their brands early in life. We're going to take a look at an actual quote from the tobacco industry. It says, "Today's teenager is tomorrow's potential regular customer, and the overwhelming majority of smokers first begin to smoke while still in their teens." And another is, "The base of our business is the high school student." In fact, 88% of smokers are exposed to nicotine by the time that they're 18 years old. Past that window, they're way less likely to start smoking. The tobacco companies know this, and they use their ads to find new customers.
So early tobacco advertising was really effective, and smoking became more and more common. Smoking rates continued to climb until 1964, which was the year the Surgeon General published a report that explained many of the harmful effects of smoking. Up until this point, however, the public suspected smoking may have been bad for your health, but this groundbreaking report confirmed it. After the release of this report, trends in smoking began to decrease. So why do you think this report had such a large impact? The report was impactful because the tobacco industry's manipulation was exposed and accurate information from a trusted source was finally available to the public.
And then we have tobacco control. The decline in smoking rates didn't happen overnight. Many public policies were put into place to discourage people from smoking. In 1965, the Federal Cigarette Labeling and Advertising Act required large warning labels on their cigarette cartons. In 1971, the Surgeon General proposed a smoking ban in all public places. Then in 1998, advertising targeted at young people was prohibited and higher taxes were placed on cigarettes to discourage the use. These kinds of policies helped fight back against the big advertising push from these large tobacco companies.
Tobacco control policies were put into place not only to encourage people who smoke to quit, but also to protect those who do not smoke. The truth about the dangers of secondhand smoke became more well known because of ads like these. Secondhand smoke is smoke that is inhaled or comes from the burning tobacco products. This smoke can cause danger for anyone who inhales this smoke, even if they are not the one who's smoking. Even pets can be harmed from secondhand smoke. And since 1964, about 2.5 million non-smokers have died from health problems caused by exposure to secondhand smoke, and many others face asthma and heart attack problems as well.
Then we know in the RICO case, which happened in 1999, the United States Department of Justice filed a suit against the cigarette companies for violating city provisions of the Racketeer Influenced and Corrupt Organizations Act, the RICO, and other laws. The same law was used in the 1970s to prosecute the mafia and others who engaged in organized crime. In 2006, the United States Court Judge Gladys Kessler convicted big cigarette companies and their trade and scientific groups of forming an illegal racketeering enterprise to defraud the American people. The court then ordered the cigarette companies to publish corrective statements telling the public that they lied to them about the dangers of smoking, secondhand smoke, and nicotine addiction. The court also prohibited them from challenging the evidence of these statements which were true, which is why the companies no longer do so. Judge Kessler stated, "The evidence in the case clearly establishes that the defendants have not ceased engaging in unlawful activity. Their continuing conduct misleads customers in order to maximize the defendants' revenues by recruiting new smokers, the majority of whom were under 18, and preventing current smokers from quitting, and thereby sustaining their industry." Do you think it was fair to treat these executives like mob bosses? We would say so.
Yeah. So this may seem like ancient history, but as you may have noticed, the tobacco companies aren't the type to give up very easily. The tobacco industry has created new marketing techniques to bring in new cigarette smoking customers. And the industry has developed new products and advertised them using their same old ad techniques that they've always used. And in our following lessons and activities, we'll explore the new and recycled strategies that are being used by tobacco companies today.
Alright, so that's it when it comes to a little history to set the stage. We've covered a little bit about that, so we know where we're going in the next couple of videos that we'll cover. If you have any questions for us, please don't hesitate to give us a call. You can reach Spencer or I at 209-257-1980. Just listen for our extension and we'll be there for you. If you want, you can also check us out on Facebook and YouTube, youtube.com. You go to Nexus Youth and Family Services and we have a bunch of videos on there for you. If you got any questions, please don't hesitate to reach out to us.
And as always, guys, stay healthy and stay safe.